Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Matt Greer. I'm the music director at St. John's Methodist Church, and you are here in the St. John's Sanctuary in beautiful uptown Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're so pleased you're with us this afternoon for this special live stream concert from Music from St. John's. When the current situation that we are in happened over a month ago, we immediately started to think in the St. John's Music Ministry about how we would continue to get great music out to our congregation and to our community. And so we first started a video project that is ongoing. We're still posting videos most every day from the Music at St. John's project that feature musicians from our community. And today we begin a new project, Music from St. John's live stream concerts, every Wednesday at noon for the foreseeable future. And so you're here for the very first one. We hope that you'll join us next week, the 6th of May, for cellist Joel Bechtel and pianist Amy Greer. And then 2 weeks from today, on the 13th of May at noon, we will feature the annoyingly young members of the St. John's music staff, including Therese McCauley, Shay Perry, Curtis Storm, and Natalie Bonelli. And beyond that, you'll just have to tune in to see what we have in store for you. But we will be doing these concerts for the foreseeable future. One of the reasons that we want to do these concerts is to help raise money for a wonderful organization that the music ministry at St. John's has partnered with for over 10 years, and that's Albuquerque Healthcare for the Homeless. They do tremendous work in our community, and in these challenging times, they're in need of our support more than ever. If you're on the live stream on the YouTube channel, in the comments, there is a link that you can click on that will take you directly to their donate page. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing today, we hope that you will share that with them through your donations. And each of these concerts we're kind of using to throw some support their way. We're so pleased this afternoon that our very first concert on this new series is being given by my dear friend and colleague Jim Ahrend, and he is a classical and jazz keyboardist who has performed in a variety of styles for many years. Today he's going to be playing classical stuff, jazz stuff, and later on in the hour he will do one of his favorite things, which is to do jazz improvisations on hymn tunes, and he would love to hear your requests for those hymns. And so if you type those into the comments, we will get them to him later in the hour, and we'll see what he can do with that. We're so pleased that you're with us this afternoon. Without any further ado, Jim Ahrend.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our new series here at St. John's. I'm glad you're taking a break in your lunch hour to enjoy a little bit of music with us. And I was very happy to be asked to kick off this new series. You know, when this whole thing happened and public gatherings were restricted, if not banned entirely, that really kind of puts a crimp in musician style. My Google Calendar emptied out immediately. And so if it wasn't for St. John's, coming here and doing live streams on Sundays and Zoom meetings and so forth, I would not have any reason to shave at all. So this is a very good thing. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm happy you're here with me. That piece that I just played was a prelude and fugue by Johann Sebastian Bach. And it's one of my favorites. It's playful in the top, and then the fugue gets very big and dramatic and almost romantic in its feel, almost Beethoven-ish or something. It's one of the more dramatic fugues I know of by Bach. I want to share with you a little picture. This is a picture of me and Bach, a statue of Bach, obviously. This is in Leipzig, Germany, and it was me last August when I actually got to go there. It was quite an experience for me to be at St. Thomas Church where Bach's gig was. That was his gig. It wasn't his home church, oddly enough, but it was his working church for 20 some odd years. And it was very moving experience to actually hear Bach played in the church where Bach was the organist and wrote a lot of this stuff. And I don't know what else I can say about that. I was surprised to learn about the history, about the fact that most of Bach's music was kind of lost in the sauce for about 75 years until Felix Mendelssohn became Kapellmeister at St. Thomas Church and rediscovered Bach and repopularized Bach. Were it not for Mendelssohn, we may have lost all of that music, most of it completely. I'm going to play a little classical up front, and then I'm going to transition into some jazz standards. I consider myself primarily a jazz pianist. It's kind of my home turf is playing jazz. And right now, I'm going to play a little bit more classical for you. I'm going to play a movement of a Beethoven sonata. It's the Pathetique by Ludwig van Beethoven, and it's not the pathetic, it's the Pathetique. And this is a very beautiful movement, middle movement from that piece. Oddly enough, Billy Joel wrote a pop tune around this movement. So you might recognize the melody as being something from the pop world as well. Yay for Beethoven! Just a beautiful, beautiful melody. One of my favorites. The next piece I picked, and believe me, I was pulling these out of the attic. I don't get to play a whole lot of classical music these days. Of course, I do at church, but as far as just the piano repertoire, the classical piano repertoire, so much of it is from my teenage years and my college years, and then you become a working jazz musician, and all of a sudden you don't have time to practice these beautiful, beautiful classical pieces. And so it's an absolute joy to pull them out again and recall and relearn in a way. The funny thing is, if you made mistakes 20 or 30 or 40 years ago doing that piece, when you pull it out again, the same mistakes will be there. But the challenge, of course, is to look at it in a fresh way. This piece is by Claude Debussy, and it's a piece from a larger work called the Children's Corner Suite, which I understand Debussy wrote for his daughter, if I'm not mistaken. And this is just a fun piece. It's the first one in the collection, and it's called Dr. Gratis ad Parnassum. And I've got one page turn in there, so you may have to bear with me. Claude Debussy. A very different style from Beethoven or Bach. Debussy I like to play because of all the colors and the chords. Very, very influential on the jazz world. Jazz players will all be familiar with that French impressionistic style of Debussy and Ravel. Okay, let's have some fun now. I have a couple of pieces that I'm going to do jazz improvisations on before we move into a little bit more legit jazz and some jazz standards. I'm going to play a couple of classical numbers, but they will be done in a improvisatory jazz style. The first one is the E minor Prelude by Frederic Chopin. And most people know it starts out like this. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that. And I'm going to attempt to do this as if Antonio Carlos Jobim had written it. in a bossa style. The other piece is the Erik Satie Gymnopedie, which has a melody that everybody's familiar with. Very, very popular melody. People use it on everything from commercials to movie soundtracks. And I will also noodle around on the Gymnopedie a little bit. So, in fact, I'll start out with that one. This is Erik Satie's Gymnopedie in the style of Jim Ahrend. By the way, when jazz people play a song that was written by someone else, it's certainly not to improve on it. It's just simply to play it as if they were hearing it and experiencing it and giving their interpretation and rendition. Same goes for Erik Satie. This is obviously a beautiful, beautiful piece. So what I'm going to do is not to, will not improve on the original in any way. All I'm doing is seeing the possibilities. Here we go. a little Chopin in a different kind of way. Okay, now we move into an area that I'm at home in, let's say. This is an area of jazz standards. I wish we had more time today, but I'll just play maybe one or two jazz standards, and then we're going to go to the all-request hymn arrangements. I don't know, are any of those coming in?
Absolutely, got 6 or 7.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So that'll obviously be spontaneous. I will not have had a chance to pre-plan my approach to any of those, but 'tis what I enjoy doing, and it's the quintessential jazz element is doing something unexpected, unprepared. This is a standard tune called Stella by Starlight. Stella by Starlight. Of course, that's by Victor Young. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Oh, I've got time for at least one or two or more standards, I think. Duke Ellington, one of the swinginest bands of all time on the planet. He had a piano style that seemed simple when you first hear it, and it's deceptively difficult to imitate. I know from experience, listening to Ellington's solos, there was just something so fresh and brilliant about every time he touched the keys. There were more virtuosic players, but there's something about the way Ellington created melodies and put them together. This is a fun little tune. It's called In a Mellow Tone. Right. Okay, well, I'll read the list off that I was just handed. Great is thy faithfulness. Mighty fortress is our God. That's a challenge. Precious Lord, take my hand, one of my favorites of all time. Deep River. Joshua fit the battle. Sweet Georgia Brown. Amazing Grace. Joyful, joyful. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. That's Beethoven, of course. Piano Man. One of my favorite hymns. Piano Man. And it is well from my soul. It is well with my soul, which we're just going to have to do because that's from Pastor Pam. Let's see what we have time for. Okay. I'm going to surprise you. Thanks so much for joining us today. Wish I had time to do more of these. They look really fun, especially Piano Man. That's all you get on that one. Yeah, great request. Thanks everybody for joining us for this series. We hope you come back next week, Wednesday, and I'm going to do. And next week, of course, is Amy Greer and Joel Bechtel, piano and cello, for some beautiful, beautiful stuff. I know I'll be listening. I'm going to send us off with a little song, a little jazz standard called "That's All." That's all, folks. Stay well, stay healthy.